7 silent complaints that occur a year before death. It's something hardly anyone talks about, even though it affects us all. Most of us would like to believe that death comes suddenly, that one day we'll simply fall asleep and never wake up again. But the reality is often different. For many people, there are subtle signs that develop slowly over the last 12 months of life. These are not dramatic symptoms that would send us rushing to the doctor, but rather quiet changes that are easily overlooked or dismissed as normal aging. In my years of working with older people and their families, I have repeatedly observed certain patterns repeating themselves. Relatives often say in retrospect, "If only I had known what to look for." That's why today I want to talk to you about 7 silent complaints that often occur in the last year of life. This is no reason to panic or be afraid. Rather, it is about becoming more aware for ourselves and for the people we love. The more we understand what happens in these final months, the better we can prepare for them and make the remaining time dignified and meaningful. The 7th complaint, which I will discuss at the end, is often completely misunderstood and could completely change your view of the end of life. So be sure to stay with me until the end. Let's get started. First silent complaint, an unexplained loss of appetite. One of the most common and most overlooked warning signs is a gradual loss of appetite. It doesn't start suddenly. No one wakes up one morning and is no longer hungry. Instead, it happens gradually, almost imperceptibly. Portions become smaller, favorite foods lose their appeal, and meals are eaten more out of habit than out of real hunger. The family often notices it first. "Grandma hardly eats anything anymore," they say with concern. "She was always such a good eater." But when you ask the older person, they just shrug their shoulders. "I just don't have an appetite anymore. Nothing tastes the same as it used to." What happens in the body is complex. Metabolism slows down, taste buds become less sensitive, and the body begins to prioritize its energy differently. It's as if it's slowly preparing for a journey for which it no longer needs as much fuel. I remember Mr. Weber, an 82-year-old former pastry chef who had lived for his bakery his entire life. His daughter told me, "Dad always said that food is life, but in the last year he hardly ate anything. He would just look at his beloved apple pies, but he didn't even try them." Looking back, the family realized that this had been one of the first signs. The mistake many people make is to fight this loss of appetite vigorously. They urge their loved ones to eat, prepare elaborate meals, or buy dietary supplements. But the body often has its own wisdom. Sometimes it is more important to fill the remaining time with conversation rather than meals, with presence rather than protein. That doesn't mean you should ignore the loss of appetite. A visit to the doctor is always advisable to rule out treatable causes. But if no medical cause is found and the loss of appetite persists, it could be a sign that the body is beginning to detach itself from the earthly realm. Second silent complaint, extreme fatigue that does not improve with rest. There is a type of fatigue that is fundamentally different from normal exhaustion after a long day. This deep, pervasive fatigue cannot be dispelled by sleep or rest. It is there when you wake up in the morning, it accompanies you throughout the day, and it is still there when you go to bed at night. People often describe it as heaviness in the bones or the feeling of wading through water. Every movement takes a disproportionate amount of energy. Even getting up from a chair feels like climbing a mountain. And the strange thing is, no matter how much you sleep, the fatigue remains. Mrs. Müller, a 87-year-old former teacher, said to her granddaughter, "You know, I'm not tired like after a long day at school. It's as if my whole body is getting heavier, as if gravity is pulling me down more." She slept 10, sometimes 12 hours, but woke up just as exhausted as when she fell asleep. This type of fatigue often has spiritual or existential undertones. It's as if the body's energy is slowly draining away, as if it is beginning to shut down its systems. Medically, it can have various causes, from heart failure to kidney problems to advanced cancer, but doctors often find no clear explanation. What loved ones can do, accept that this fatigue is real. Don't push for activities, but adapt to the new rhythm. Maybe that means keeping visits shorter, having conversations while lying down, or just sitting quietly together. The quality of time spent together is more important than the quantity of activities. Third silent complaint, a gradual withdrawal from social activities. When someone begins to withdraw from the outside world, it is often misunderstood as depression. But in the last year of life, this withdrawal is often something else. It is a natural process of turning inward, a kind of emotional preparation for saying goodbye. It starts subtly. Perhaps someone cancels appointments more often, loses interest in the news, or no longer wants to answer the phone. The weekly coffee date becomes a burden, and the grandchild's birthday party is avoided with an excuse. "I'm not in the mood today," is often the response. Mr. Schmidt, an 85-year-old former engineer, had been sociable all his life. His wife reported, he was always the first at every party, and knew everyone in the neighborhood. But in the last year, he didn't want to see anyone anymore. Even when his children came to visit, he would withdraw after half an hour. This withdrawal is not synonymous with lovelessness or disinterest. Rather, it is a sign that the person is beginning to conserve their emotional energy and focus on what is essential. The outside world loses importance, while the inner world becomes more important. This can be painful for loved ones. We want to help, cheer them up, bring them back to life, but sometimes the best gift we can give is permission to withdraw. Instead of pushing, we can offer our presence quietly, patiently, without expectations. Fourth silent complaint: changed sleep patterns and nighttime restlessness. In the last year of life, sleep often becomes a complex dance between day and night. The normal sleep-wake rhythms that have accompanied us for decades begin to break down. Some people sleep more during the day and are awake at night. Others doze off at short intervals throughout the day without ever really sleeping deeply. There are several causes for these changes. The body produces less melatonin, the sleep hormone. At the same time, fears and worries can become more intense at night when the distractions of the day are absent. Sometimes it is as if the body is practicing blurring the line between waking and sleeping, between here and there. Mrs. Bauer said of her husband, "He was always an early riser, getting up at 6 a.m. and going to bed at 10 p.m. Last year, everything was mixed up. He fell asleep in his armchair during the day, was wide awake at night, and talked about his parents as if they were still alive. The dreams and hallucinations that can occur during this time are particularly remarkable. Many people report visits from deceased relatives, vivid dreams, or the perception of people in the room that others cannot see. Medicine may refer to this as confusion or delirium, but for those affected, these experiences are often comforting and meaningful. What can relatives do? Create a calming environment for the night. Dim lighting, familiar objects, and perhaps soft music can help. If the person talks about deceased relatives, do not correct them. Listen and ask questions. These conversations can be important bridges. If you are still watching this video and find the information valuable, please write the number 4 in the comments below so I can see that you are here. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I recommend that you do so and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue to cover important topics like this. Let's move on to the fifth silent complaint: difficulty walking with no apparent physical cause. It's strange, your legs aren't injured, your joints look normal on x-rays, and yet walking is becoming increasingly difficult. It's not the typical pain of arthritis or weakness after an illness. It's more like the connection between the will to walk and the ability to walk is weakening. People describe it as a feeling of uncertainty, or as if the ground is no longer solid enough. Steps become smaller and more hesitant. Even familiar paths in your own home can suddenly seem challenging. The edge of a carpet becomes a trip hazard, a door threshold an obstacle. Mr. Zimmermann, a 70-year-old former postman who had been walking all his life, said to his son, "My legs just don't want to do what I want them to do anymore. It's as if they've forgotten how to walk." Medical examinations showed no abnormalities, but walking became increasingly difficult nonetheless. These walking difficulties are often more than just a physical symptom. They can symbolize the increasing difficulty of moving around in the physical world as the person begins to prepare for a different journey. It is as if the body is loosening its anchorage in the material world. Safety becomes important during this phase. Walking aids, handrails, and non-slip mats can help, but even more important is to take the pressure off. It's okay to walk less. It's okay to sit or lie down more. The body often knows what it needs. Sixth silent complaint: confusion and disorientation in familiar surroundings. One of the most disturbing changes for family members is when a loved one suddenly becomes disoriented in their own home or no longer recognizes familiar people. These episodes can be brief, lasting only a few minutes, or they can last longer. They often come and go without warning. "Where am I?" Mrs. Keller asked her daughter one afternoon, even though she was sitting in the living room where she had lived for 40 years. "I have to go home," she said, often referring to her childhood home. Moments like these are heartbreaking for family members, but they are more common than you might think. This confusion is not always dementia in the classic sense. In the last year of life, it can be part of a natural process in which the boundaries between past and present, between here and there, become more permeable. Some experts believe that it is a kind of psychological preparation for the transition. People often search for home during this phase, but they don't mean their current home. They long for a sense of comfort and security that they associate with earlier stages of life, or they talk about trips they have to take, suitcases that need to be packed. Dealing with this requires a lot of patience and compassion. Don't constantly correct them. If someone says they have to go home, ask, "Tell me about your home. What is it like there?" People often calm down when they can talk about these inner images. Seventh silent complaint: the phenomenon of flashing before the end. This is perhaps the most mysterious and misunderstood phenomenon. Many people experience a period of clarity and energy in the last days or weeks of their lives that surprises their loved ones and often raises false hopes. Suddenly their appetite returns, their confusion disappears, and they seem almost like their old selves. This phase is sometimes referred to as brightening or rallying. The person suddenly wants to see certain people, has deep conversations, and takes care of unfinished business. It is as if their life energy flares up briefly before fading away. Mrs. Wagner had barely spoken or eaten anything for weeks. Then one Tuesday morning she woke up and asked for her favorite breakfast. She called all her children, told stories from her childhood, and laughed like she hadn't laughed in months. The family thought she was recovering. 3 days later, she passed away peacefully in her sleep. This brightening is not a sign of improvement in the medical sense. It is more of a gift, a last chance for reconciliation, for important words, for farewells. Some believe it is the soul's way of saying goodbye and making sure everything is okay. It is important for loved ones to understand, use this time, say what you want to say, listen, be present, but also understand that this is often a sign that the end is near, not that a cure is imminent. Final thoughts. Knowing these 7 silent complaints can be both frightening and liberating. Frightening because they confront us with our own mortality. Liberating because they can help us make the last months of a loved one's life, or our own, more conscious and dignified. It is important to understand that not everyone will show all of these signs. Some people will only show a few, while others will show completely different symptoms. Death is as individual as life itself. These signs are not a checklist, but rather signposts that can help us be more sensitive to the needs of someone in the final stages of life. What can we learn from this knowledge? First, that death is often not a sudden event, but a process. Second, that our bodies and souls often know what they are doing, even if it doesn't make sense to us. And third, that the most important medicine during this time is often not pills or treatments, but presence, love, and permission to let go. If you know someone who is showing these signs, be there, not with solutions or false encouragement, but with your presence. Listen, hold their hand, allow silence. Sometimes the most precious thing we can give is simply to be there while someone is taking their last journey. And if you notice some of these signs in yourself, then know that this is a natural part of the life cycle. It is a time to make peace, to say what is important, to say goodbye. It is also a time to be kind to yourself, and to accept that letting go is as much a part of life as holding on. Death may be the end of life, but the way we die and how we accompany others as they die can be one of the most meaningful gifts we give and receive. In knowing about these silent complaints lies the possibility of facing death with less fear and more understanding. Thank you for staying with us until the end. This topic is not easy, but it is important. If you know someone who could benefit from this information, please share this video. And if you have had your own experiences with these silent complaints, we would love to hear about them in the comments. Your stories can help others who are going through similar situations. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell to stay informed about other important topics. Together we can learn to deal with life's major transitions in a more conscious and compassionate way. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.